Our top lead, this laptop, ladies and gentlemen, that you see in front of me, well, it's imported. And chances are, so is the laptop you're using right now. And these devices are about to get more expensive. That is because India has severely restricted the imports of laptops, tablets, and personal computers with immediate effect. The Ministry of Commerce has imposed a licensing requirement on their imports. This import restriction is on electronic devices that fall under a certain category, which is the HSN 8741. The move is pretty similar to the one imposed in 2020 for imported televisions. Now, question is, what is this HSN 8741 category? Let me explain. In simple terms, it is the code used for both import and export of data processing machines. Gadgets such as laptops, computers, tablets, mobile phones, they are all capable of processing information, and so they fall under this category. But do remember, the government notification does not include mobile phones. So it appears there is status quo there. Question is, why is the government putting in a licensing regime when it comes to laptops that are imported? A couple of reasons here. Firstly, electronic imports are India's second largest, and the government is trying to tackle that by putting some reins on it. You won't believe this, but electronic imports were worth a whopping $19.7 billion in just 3 months, April, May, and June. That is a 6.25% increase compared to last year. No wonder the government is trying to cut that down. Any government would. What is more interesting, India's electronic exports are on fire. They've shot up by over 45% from last year. And it is bound to get better with more local manufacturing / assembling in the picture as well. Then there is the other elephant in the room, China. The new move can be seen as a two-pronged attack on China with an eye on the global market. Let's see how. Dell, Acer, Samsung, LG, Panasonic, Apple, Lenovo, HP. All these brands, you and I are very well aware of them because chances are those are the laptops and tablets we are using. What's common to them? A substantial portion of these are imported from countries like China. Dell and HP have already got some manufacturing plants in India, so no problem for them. But companies that do not have local plants might now have to consider setting them up here in India. If not for manufacturing, then at least for assembling them here. Because remember, there are no licensing requirements for the import of their parts. The licensing is required for the full thing. So in short, not only will dependence on a country like China decrease, it'll be a big loss for China when companies will have to set up factories here in India. So that's a good thing. That also plays into Make in Bharat, Atmanirbhar Bharat. That is something the government of India has been pushing for. Now, the big question is, how will all of this affect you? Well, if you're planning to buy a phone or a tablet from overseas for personal use, no worries. You're safe from restrictions. But yes, customs duty still exists, so be prepared for that. And if you're traveling to India from abroad with gadgets you bought from outside, don't fret, you're exempt from the import restriction as well. If any item under the HSN 8741 category is first exported from India for repair purposes and then re-imported to India, such shipments are also, of course, excluded from this latest import license requirement. This notification of today will mainly impact businesses that import equipment on a large scale. And the major hit on a consumer level will come for those companies who mass import their gadgets without any manufacturing units in India. And this means you may have to shell out more for your next laptop purchase. Companies that import gadgets in bulk without manufacturing units in India will feel the pinch. They can only bring in 20 items per consignment, and that too for specific purposes that have been approved by the government, like research and development, benchmarking, repairs, product development, etc. The big question, is India's ecosystem right now ready for assembly of and manufacturing at such a high level to cater to the tech needs of India? That is the big question. Let me go straight across to Sameer Dikshit, who is joining us live on the broadcast. Sameer, thank you very much for your time. Could you help me understand whether this had been in the works for a while and what really is the reason that is driving the government's need to curb imports of laptops and tablets and PCs? And why have phones been exempted?
Quite a valid point. Quite a valid point. But from the government perspective, they have a viewpoint that as of now, there is enough manufacturing capacity in India, in the sense that some of the major players, the prominent name in this space, they are having manufacturing unit here in India. So to give a push to Make in India mission, to give a push to manufacturing in India, these sort of import has to be curbed, and so the government came up with this restriction. The notification has been issued. Largely, the government also has a viewpoint that they have already announced production-linked incentive scheme, or popularly known as PLI scheme, for more than 24 sectors, which also include the electronics part. So the players, they can take the advantage of the PLI scheme, so they can have not just the manufacturing capacity here in India, but this will help the Indian economy as well. So PLI scheme is one of the aspects. Secondly, one of the sources informed me that they are also of a viewpoint that largely if you see these sort of imports in a bulk quantity may possess some sort of security challenge, and to avoid it, this curve has been put in place. One of the important aspects also include that whatever the consignment, the deal which has already been done, or the consignment which is en route to India, the import which has been already shipped in, so that will be allowed up till 31st of August. So this time frame has been provided that till 31st August the imports will be allowed, but conditionally that deal has already been done before the notification has been issued, or the entire consignment is en route to India. But from the day, that is with immediate effect, no new deal can be done or no new consignment can be ordered from India. So that is the key aspect. Now this entire notification mentions this important aspect that there are certain exemptions as well. And as you rightly mentioned, that this exemption include that per consignment 20 items can be imported conditionally, that these items will be used for R&D, for research and development work, for the repair and return purpose, and similarly other things. So some sort of exemptions has been given, but largely a bulk order, a bulk consignment import will not be allowed, and this will help India to stand on its own feet in the manufacturing space, particularly laptop, personal computers and smartphones.
Okay. Sameer, can I very quickly ask you if there is any reasoning as to why cell phones have not been included in this list?
Very valid one. The same question was asked to the government as well. So government understand as of now that, see, the large space is there in the smartphone category, and in the smartphone category, at least top 10 brands having a larger market share of more than 90%. So these 9 to 10 brands, they have a manufacturing capacity here in India, and the stats suggest that the export has also been booming in the past almost 3 or 4 quarters. So smartphones is an aspect where the import could be restricted. Some technical items will be allowed to import, but like the chips or the semiconductors. Other than that, majorly the import has been curbed, so they have put in place the restrictions on the smartphone part. But on the cell phone part, the government understands that it is a very small chunk, and that import is in a very minimal quantity, so that won't impact or put in any problem to the entire ecosystem. A smartphone is something which is there in bulk quantity, and to make Indian players more strong, this restriction has been put on the smartphone category as well.
Okay, Sameer, we'll leave it there for the moment. You're saying these restrictions, very importantly, are on the smartphone category as well. Not all mobile phones, but smartphones. Thank you, Sameer, for joining us with that, with that clarification and that perspective as well. Let me quickly go across to our guests who are joining us this evening. Ajay Dua is a former Secretary, Ministry of Commerce, and Navkender Singh is the AVP Device Research, IDC Asia Pacific. Mr. Singh, can I start with you and ask you what you make of the government's move? Has it come as a surprise?
Yeah, thanks for having me here. I don't, I'll be surprised if people from the industry are surprised as a move. I mean, this was a long time coming. We have seen that government really taking the initiatives in the other electronic space, smartphone, and since you were speaking to one of your colleagues, almost 90% plus smartphones in India are assembled in India now. So government is slightly soft there that we're already making and selling, assembling a lot of smartphones in India. But in laptops, just to give you an idea, about 2 million plus or 20 lakh plus laptops are sold or the brands bring into India. Almost 75% of them, that's about 15 lakh, are actually imported. So impact is huge there. Now, we from the industry are not surprised. We are just surprised at the timing that one, it is happening just before an important holiday season when the consumer really goes out in the market and buys electronics, and laptops is one of the market has not been doing well for the past 2-3 quarters. But post-pandemic, everybody is in the offices, schools are open, so people are not buying as many laptops as they were from 2020, 21, 22. Now, we are surprised at the move that has happened now and the clause that it's happened immediately. So I think what will happen, it will certainly impact the prices. The industry is fairly stocked in terms of inventory for at least August and September. We believe industry will lobby for some relaxation in terms of a few months, and then it starts stocking up, but it certainly increase the prices in the near term. You should see the prices going up, as you also said.
Okay, but do we have the capacity to manufacture / assemble in India? Look, we are already doing it for the smartphones. You're telling me that even though smartphones are covered under this category where licenses will be required, in any case, if 90% of the smartphones are already being assembled in India, so the smartphone category doesn't really get impacted. What gets impacted are laptops, etc., tablets, etc. Do we have the capacity here in India? Because the capacity that is required will be fairly large, right? Do we have it?
Yes, we don't have that that kind of capacity immediately. There is certain amount of ecosystem in place because skill set and infrastructure is in place because we have been assembling or making in India smartphones for the past few years. So some kind of ecosystem is there, but the laptop manufacturers have not really adopted it, and I think for the next 1 or 2 quarters, there's a problem in the capacity. We should see if this remains like this, we should see capacity be augmented. But right now, as we speak, we don't have that kind of capacity. So it will certainly impact the inventory situation and the demand supply situation in the market in the next 2-3 months.
Okay, Ajay Dua, you're a former Secretary, Ministry of Commerce. Look, Atmanirbhar Bharat is a great idea. You want to push for India to make stuff for the world, as Prime Minister Modi keeps saying. It's not make for India, it's make in India now and make for the world. I want to ask you this. What do you make of the government's move and its timing? Is it only about Atmanirbhar Bharat to boost local manufacturing / assembly? Or does this have something to do with China as well?
Shreya, thank you for having me on your show to talk about this important subject. I think the government's motivation is more than one. Certainly, we would like to see the manufacturing of laptops and also data processing to become stronger in India, as was just mentioned by the previous panelist. Of the 2 million which come into the country, as many as 1.5 million, 75% are probably being imported. Having said that, I would say we have to also look at our balance of trade position. We're finding that when on one hand our imports, fuel, etc., fuel, fertilizer, all those things continue to be escalating, both in volume as well as in value. At the same time, our electronics imports also rising and are likely to reach a figure of $80 billion this year, is a huge figure. Unless our exports build up, we can't be in a position to finance it. Otherwise, we see a current account deficit with its implication on our value of the rupee and the other consequences on the economy. So the government has discriminated, and an important question which you asked, our exports of smartphones and the phone sector now seem to have been established, and we have become a large exporter of, it might be even just assembled, but we are exporting in a big manner, with big names having come to us globally, including Apple, etc. And huge amount of employment in the process is getting created in India. So the government didn't want to hit something which is getting us the valuable hard currency. And that's the story with respect to the to the smartphones and other phones which you talked about. Why have the restrictions not been put there? But in the case of electronic data processing, HSN, the 871, which you talked about, there we are a net spender of foreign exchange. Imports are much larger than the exports which take place from India. So the government would like to see those come down, and government has taken care, and I would compliment it for all the exclusivities or the exemptions which they have provided for. One item can be imported as long as personal baggage, the rules don't apply to personal baggage. Those will have to pay the duty on it. For R&D purposes, for repair, what goes in out, those are all kept outside. But if there is a bulk import and the purpose is selling, you would certainly be required to obtain a license, which means that the imports would come down, even if there is market there and somebody is willing to pay the duty. Yet the government wants to check the outflow of the foreign currency on that account. And I would say that the glitch is only going to be temporary. A PLI scheme for this, your colleague Samir had talked about it, it is likely to take off. There have been initial issues about reimbursement of some subsidy, etc., to some of these players. But I think that is a sector where we could see, while the components are coming in, because there's no licensing requirement on components, it's on the assembly. That on the assembly, when PLI is working, you could see fairly easily, given our functioning ecosystem in support of electronic items, that it starts yielding results. And
so essentially, Ajay Dua, essentially what you're telling us is, I'm afraid I'm out of time, but essentially what you're telling us is short-term pain, because the price of laptops and PCs and tablets is bound to go up after this move, but long-term gain, where you see India becoming a major hub for processing and assembling laptops, tablets, etc. So that's a good thing, net a good thing. We'll leave it there for the moment. Ajay Dua, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Singh, for joining us as well. With that, it's a wrap from me, but up next, a very important and interesting interview in case you're interested in diabetes, because the biggest study on diabetes, its results are out and they are startling. That's up next. Do stay with us.